Dan, just walk the outer wall now. There's bricks all over the ground. 651 guy says, for $50, I'll get you a brick tonight. Is that true? Are there bricks but I mean, are they Williams Arena bricks?
That's a good question.
I don't want just any old brick.
Yeah.
I want something that's proven to have been, that was part of the structure.
I haven't seen a lot of bricks, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong spots. I'm not sure. The brick is majestic. I love the brick.
There's no question.
Yeah. Huntington Bank has a nice facade with that now, too, like Memorial used to.
One of the great regrets of my existence is about, I want to say, it has to be at least 15 years ago. I became obsessed with trying to get a brick from the old Memorial Auditorium in Gary, Indiana, which is where there were 8 high schools in Gary. 8. And they all played their home games at Memorial Auditorium. Literally an auditorium where the court's up on a stage and you're, looking at it from the seats. That's where I grew up. That's where I learned to appreciate good basketball. And I found somebody in one of the Gary offices, and they said, we can get you a brick. And I never followed up on it. And now I'm thinking it's probably too late because that was literally like 15 years ago. So probably the bricks are all gone.
I bet you could find one, though, on eBay, or you could do a Google.
I want to know I don't want to be lied to, though. I got to know it's a brick from Memorial Auditorium.
You got to have faith in humanity. Down, by the way. You got to have faith in humanity a little bit. You do have to take a leap of faith. I think
some of the wreckage is still there, actually. But, I guess I could just go there and grab something, but I'm afraid, that might not work out very well. I'm, just kind of walking around, tiptoeing around all that wreckage.
Rubble.
That might be unfortunate, too. I'm 65, was always against getting rid of Williams Arena, but it is time. An 8,000-seat arena sounds to me like an arena to the beautiful people, not a people's stadium. But whatever helps recruiting the most would get my vote. That's from Peace and Love Guy. Well, I think you can control that, I'd like to think, regarding the beautiful people quotient, at least a little. Right?
Definitely.
I could have something to do with that.
Yes, definitely.
So let me ask you something about fan department and how we draw the line between letting fans express themselves and letting security do what they think their job is, which I guess is to muzzle people. Because in Dallas right now, that's what they're trying to do. There's great unhappiness, as we talked about yesterday, regarding the Luka deal. They are now short several players, including the main player, Anthony Davis. They traded, or they acquired in the Luka deal. There's a good chance that they're about to go into a big-time tailspin because they're down at least 2 big men, maybe 3. And so the other night, there was what one might expect in an arena like that. There were signs, et cetera, things like that. And then they talked about the security people, about the NBA Code of Conduct, clothing, garments, or signs displaying explicit language, profanity, or derogatory characterization towards any person. Now, in this particular case, we talked yesterday about 2 men who were ejected late in the game after a shouting match broke out with Mark Cuban, who, of course, is no longer majority owner. Did he get bought out completely? I can't remember.
I thot he still had a little bit.
He still got his regular baseline seat by the Mavericks bench. And at one point, Cuban yells, "Shut the bleep up and sit the bleep down." And then there's sort of it sort of escalates from there. Cuban saying that the fans' seats were approximately 20 rows behind him, and they were yelling, "Fire Nico," while the Mavericks were shooting free throws, and again during a critical possession late in regulation. Cuban claimed he did not curse until the fans pointed and shouted at him, although he did not know what they said. How do you get thrown out? And I'll ask the question knowing the answer. How does Mark Cuban get away with expletives if that's allegedly one of the things you can get thrown out for? Yeah, is it annoying if you're, a Mavericks fan and you got, while the Mavericks are shooting free throws, you got a Fire Nico chance, but you can't really, I don't know, there's something, this doesn't smell right to me. I know they're on the defensive. I know there's people who are, I'm sure, acting going well over the line. But in the second incident, and I guess this is the one we're talking about, the Cuban incident, the fan wore a T-shirt that also broke the rule, cited, and was also intoxicated, disruptive, and uncooperative. Well, again, you can play with that a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the right line is, but I have to believe, given the fact that the Mavericks are about to fall off of a cliff,
right,
that they're going to have to take a long, hard look at how tough they're going to want to be. Because what you know how human nature is. The more you try to button the thing up, the more people are going to, I think, become obsessed at beating the system. And so there's a part of me that says we might have to accept some fire Nico chants. And what you hope is if you sort of let it go, that people almost get tired of it. What brings more fuel to it is, oh, here comes security. Well, it worked. Now everybody's upset.
Right.
And now, I might get thrown out, but it draws more attention to it than if you go, oh, we don't love this, but how far can we go? I think they got a problem there. And, I am a little bothered by how you decide that what Cuban did was not over the line, but what those fans did was. I don't know. It's a little, I think it's dicier than people who automatically say, yeah, get them all out of there. It's ridiculous. It's like, well, they pay their tickets. They're not allowed to harass people, but is a fire Nico chant by one person, or two in this case,
right?
Does that rise to the level of being thrown out? I don't think so.
Well, they don't mind when it's refs you suck.
That's true.
Right?
Yes, and that's negative.
That's absolutely negative on some people that are at the game, that are there. They don't mind when it's that. They don't mind when you're mocking and ridiculing the opponents. So you're just going to be soft because their ire happens to be in your direction. 100% they can't just start doing that. And it does just draw more attention to it.
It does. We had the incident this year. It was Twins related, was it not? Somebody had tried to bring a sign in and got
sell the team.
Did not make it into the building, I think, in this case. And we talked about it. And somebody, I thought the last time we brought this up, said the sign holder called into comment. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't remember.
It is. Yeah, that rings a bell.
And again, I guess on signs, the rules are in place at most arenas where you can kind of do it the way you want to do it. But I think the vocalizing part, is it an inopportune time to do it? Yeah, but that's the point, right? That's where you're God forbid if Glue Gal shows up down there. Think about it.
They'll catch her in the vestibule.
Yeah,
they'll catch her in the concourse. She won't even get to the seats.
Yeah. Again, I get it. It's Mark Cuban. It's going to take cojones to throw Mark Cuban out of the building. But it sounds like what escalated it was Cuban firing back. And it's like, well, then I don't know how the other guys end up, getting thrown out. And you cover yourself with, well, he's kind of drunk. It's like, well, did you give him a breathalyzer? I mean, how far did he go here? Because even strategically, I think you got to be smarter about it, or based on how bad Dallas is about to become, you're going to end up, prosecuting, throwing out 25 or 30 fans a game, right? I mean, I think you got to be a little bit smarter about that. And you have to accept the unusual nature of this pushback. This guy was considered godlike.
He was the heart
Dallas.
And soul of your team.
Yes. And so he
made people feel.
And that doesn't give people a right, obviously, to threaten lives or to go ridiculously over the line. But the idea that because somebody said this the other day on the radio, they go, well, surprised this is lasting this long. Surprised it's going to last longer because Davis is hurt. So it's actually going to get worse, I think, before it gets better, especially if Luka and the Lakers take off as well. Grand in your hand time?
Yes, the fan wants to give you a shot. To put a grand in your hand, it is our national cash contest, and the keyword for the 4 o'clock hour is grand. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword grand.
What happens tonight if a fire Glenn Taylor chant breaks out at the Wolves game? Will those individuals be removed? And what if the folks leading that chant are Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry?
That was going to be my follow-up.
Yeah.
If it's the guys that just won the arbitration case, I don't think you can do anything to them. They might be like pumping the crowd up, like you said.
We're waiting for Glenn Taylor to announce whatever he's going to announce, right? That he said, I'm going to take a look at the ruling, and then I'll decide what we're going to go do from there. And as we said, his choices are limited. he can't appeal it. This is a binding arbitration case. The only thing he can do is go to court to say, I think a judge got bought off, or I think there was a conflict of interest, or something of that sort. I don't think he can appeal on the merits of what the judges in a 2-1 vote concluded. So that's the next step here, right? We're just kind of waiting for Glenn. And by the way, he doesn't have to do anything, I guess. And at that point,
yeah, I don't think we'll see another announcement from him.
My assumption, well, only I mean he'd have a better chance at a statue if he does release another statement saying, "Hey, look, I've thought this through. I don't like the ruling. I disagree with the ruling, but I'm going to respect the ruling. And congratulations to the new guys. We've had some tense moments, and I'm ready to move on. I'd like to keep my seats. Becky would like to continue to make the lasagna.
I think that's a nice touch.
I think it is too.
Yeah. At least sell it at the new
if I'm
arena.
A-Rod and Lori, I'd probably want a food taster. If they hand the lasagna to them,
I'm
I don't
guessing
know.
they won't be there.
Probably true too.
The players will be.
The players will be. And then the next step, which may have already begun, is all the financials are going to whoever needs to vet them at the National Basketball Association offices, right, on the business side.
Yes, that's the next whole step.
That's the next step for sure.
They're presented for approval to the Board of Governors.
That fan in Dallas is lucky Mark Cuban doesn't have as thin a skin as Joe Pollad, or he probably would have been publicly flogged. That's Mike in Chaska. We've all talked about, you said you're getting on a plane tonight. Where are you headed?
Columbus, Ohio.
Buckeyes and Gophers tomorrow?
Buckeyes and Gophers tomorrow night.
Buckeyes any good, women's team?
They're top 10.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're very good.
So Big
very
Ten,
good program.
How many big so UCLA and USC, I assume, are also top 10?
Yes, they're both. I don't know if USC is still top 5 after the Iowa loss, but UCLA is undefeated.
Yeah.
And killing teams. USC has been 2, 3, 4, 5 pretty much all year.
And Ohio State, you said, is in the top 10 as well.
Yes.
All right, fair enough. This has been discussed and analyzed endlessly. Is there a better way to get on and especially off the plane like grown-ups? And according to this particular piece, there's a belief that, again, alliteration is king, the deplaning delinquents are getting out of control. There's the person who pushes his way to the front of the plane to make a tight connection, even though the flight arrived early. The dawdler in the aisle seat who slowly packs up when everyone in the row is ready to deplane. And the crowd surfer who plunges to the back of the plane for bags stored rows behind him. That's always tricky. And this piece by Allison Pohl, Wall Street Journal, suggests that airlines have invested new technology and effort into making the boarding process more efficient, but deplaning remains pretty much in their mind, a free-for-all. And they give some examples of exactly that. The suggestion here is that flyers can choose a different approach to the etiquette of flying. There's a few unwritten rules, as far as I'm concerned, says one traveler. When you're deboarding the plane, it goes in row order, so you let the row in front of you go first. Now, here's where it gets sticky. Travelers, more and more of them are carrying their luggage on. Airline executives have tried to address the problem by installing bigger overhead bins. But sometimes you do have to put if you have no room in the overhead around you, you might have to, place it further down the row, right?
That's always
in the
tough.
plane, and that's tough because then later I don't want to wait. I want to get it. I want to push. I'm going to shove by, whatever the case may be. And one of the suggestions that's offered here, and I need more information about this from our world travelers because I am not all that familiar with this particular strategy. But one of the tricky things about deplaning is, and I think you've been on planes like this, I certainly have, where the flight attendant on the front of the plane, thinking he or she is doing the right thing, says, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to arrive approximately, well, no, they never say that because they don't want to proclaim the obvious. They'll say, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of passengers on this plane with an extremely tight connection.
Yep.
Parenthetically, that's because this plane came in late to the gate. And we would really appreciate, I know they would appreciate, if you would allow them to deplane first before the rest of the general deplaning. I think most people would say that's reasonable. But you know where the problem comes in. There's always 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 jamokes.
The fake connectors?
Who are fake connectors. Oh, yeah, no, I got like 3 minutes, and it's 27 gates down. I got to make it to Albuquerque. And so you don't know. Are you going to say, let me see your boarding pass on your next flight? So then you get into that, well, when am I allowed to, go back, basically slide into the aisle, grab my overhead bag, and then get off as well? It looks to me like the whole plane's getting off. How do I know where the end of the line is to the people who actually do have a tight connection? That's the problem. If flight attendants aren't going to monitor that and flat out say, tight connection, tight whatever, and then almost stand there allowing, then holding off the rest of the rabble so that the people in the next, aisle, next row can say, okay, now we've waited, now we're going to get off the plane. You can't trust people. That's part of the challenge to what seems to be a very rational idea, because we've all had tight connections, correct?
Yep. But
I don't think there's any way out of that box. Now, what's suggested here, if I can find it, is something called, that I've never heard of, and I've read this part of the piece 8 times, and I still don't understand it. It's called the hopscotch approach. Are you familiar with it?
I might be, but I've never referred to it as this, so I don't know. Jason
Steffen is described as an astrophysicist and associate professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He insists that he has studied the most efficient way to board a plane. That method involves boarding passengers. So this is the boarding part, I guess. Boarding passengers in alternating rows. In one version, see if you can follow this. You begin with the traveler sitting in the window seat of the last row of the plane. The next person boards 2 rows away, or 2 rows up, I guess, and so on, switching between each side of the plane and working from the window to the aisle seat. Now, the deplaning side, Steffen says the fastest way is to employ this boarding method in reverse. Under the current row-by-row method, an entire plane full of people might end up waiting for one person who struggles to take down or manage luggage.
Yeah.
The alternating row method would allow more travelers to step into the aisle and take their bags. He knows this method is unlikely. He says it would be like herding cats. So I still don't know if I understand it. I'm trying to visualize it. I'm not a very good visualizer. Do you understand what?
So the way if I think I understand it, and people can obviously correct us, Bradshaw and Brian, KFAN text line 64686. Let's just start row 1. So row 1 on one side goes, then row 2 on the other side goes, then row 1 on, and they alternate back and forth. Is that what he's saying?
Well, kind of like I'm looking at a chart for the deplaning. So he's got on the front row of the plane, or at least, the non-beautiful people seats, he's got these numbered. So number 1 is the guy or gal on the left aisle. Gets out.
Yep.
Then the next person who gets out is 2 rows on the same side of the plane as he is. Then number 3 is 2 rows back. Also, it's all on this one side of the plane. And then the next one, 2 more rows back, is number 4.
So it's one at a time,
so
basically.
So it's literally one
row.
at a time, all the way down to number 6 is the second to last row on the left. Then finally, on the right, number 7 is on the aisle seat right side of the plane. Number 8 is 2 rows back, also on the aisle as well. I just think there's no chance this is workable, because people will not. They
won't wait.
How often do people at a 4-way stop not be able to deal with it?
Right.
When you're driving, you go, wait a minute, no, I was next. No, you actually weren't. You weren't even close. You just got here. So I don't think there's any way. It sounds good in theory, but I don't think there's any chance it could actually succeed.
No, unless you have, like, if you go to a wedding and it's a buffet, and you'll have the people that go to your table to release you to go eat. You know what I mean? They'll stand there, and then they'll look and go, okay, the buffet looks like it's dying down. Okay, now you can go. They always do it that way, right? Rather than the free-for-all at the buffet. You have to have people almost releasing the passengers to say you can go now.
Like a monitor. You're 100%
because
right.
People can't do it on their own.
They're incapable of it. Because it only takes one goofball
Exactly.
to screw up the entire system, and then everybody else, it's a free-for-all. They go, I give up. We ain't going to do hopscotch. This isn't a hopscotch plane. I'm sorry. We don't have enough people who are capable of dealing with it, so now it's every man or woman for himself.
It really sounds good in theory, but I don't think it's going to work.
There is another answer, which we'll talk about on the other side of a break. There is another answer, perhaps every bit as practical, but one that I actually think has a better chance to succeed. We'll get to some text on this controversial subject as well. And cover ground, I should say, on a number of other stories. Kessler will join about 1 hour from now in studio. That was in the Barrero Bozich heyday. I can still remember when we were both rooming in a one-bedroom apartment, three of us. It's a long story. Cedar View Apartments, Bloomington, Indiana. Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert at Assembly Hall. We've got the Gratitude album on the Victrola, and Bozich is dancing. May have been the last time Bozich ever danced, but it was brilliant. God, what a great album that is. For my money, the best Earth, Wind, and Fire album. It's a white album called Gratitude. It was a double, as I recall it, and I think half of it was live, and half of it was new material, and it's just outstanding. I can't say enough about it.
Why don't you get Bozich in town and you guys can go up to the Ledge?
That's not a bad idea, actually.
I think he'd probably like that.
Although, I think, I believe Maurice White has passed away. Will you double check whether he has? He was one of the leaders of the band.
I will.
That's always the question, who's left.
I'm checking one other thing to see. What did I say? August 10th?
Yeah.
Is when that concert is. Let's see if we can strike. No, too bad. I was hoping the White Sox were in town because then it'd be easy.
Even easy, yeah.
Right? The Royals are in town that weekend, so it's a Sunday night, so I don't think he's going to do that. Did you guys ever accidentally wear each other's candy stripe pants while you were there?
No, that never.
You always knew your candy stripes were one? Because that'd be awkward in a one-bedroom apartment to put on the wrong candy stripes.
You look back on this stuff, and you go, how did we do it? It was a small apartment, and he needed a place to stay. Again, it's a long story. So I had a single bed. My regular roommate, Tommy Burke from Glen Ellen, Illinois, had the other bed, and we basically had to clear everything else out and put like a mattress between us. That was it. It was you're in college. The things you look back on, and it wasn't any big deal.
No, you just did it.
You just did it, right?
It's probably, well, we call those, Dan, simpler times.
Oh, they were simpler times. My God, you're right.
Simpler times.
The texts are pouring in on this controversial hopscotch idea. Let me get to some of them. Just do what I did. Go on vacation 1 month before your wife gives birth, only to have her go into labor while you're gone. Fastest possible way into the plane. That is Ryan. I have no idea, writes another Ryan out of Mankato, why everyone is in a hurry to get on the plane and wait. I always wait, so I'm one of the last aboard because the seats in the terminal are much more comfortable than the ones in the plane. Well, the answer to that is easy. For the people who are in a hurry, I'm bringing a steamer trunk on board.
Right.
And I'm going to have no chance to get that steamer trunk up there in the remaining available compartment, right? Whatever.
Yep,
yeah, there's no the overhead compartments. There's no chance. It's not going to work.
Because I'm with him. I get on the plane. I'm almost always the last person to board.
Yes.
I try to get an aisle seat so that I'm not
I admire you.
bothering anybody. And a lot of times I just check my bag. Like, I don't mind waiting for it on the other side. Like tonight, I'm going to get in late. I'm not in any hurry.
God bless you, because I think that's the sanest way to travel. It really is. More on that in a minute. On my way back from Macau, when transferring in Shanghai, I met a dude from Egypt in the same situation I'd been in days earlier. He was about to repeat my mistake, but I was able to save him and get him on the right transfer bus. Well, he must have texted something earlier, and this must be an addendum. I'll try to find that a little bit later. But I had a couple other ones I wanted to read. People who have tight schedules can pay extra for seats closer to the exit. That's Craig in Boston. So he ain't having any part.
I did get a text from a friend of mine that kind of said the same thing. Because airlines nickel and dime you for everything.
They do.
They should just say, if you want a quicker deplane, you can pay $25 for it. Priority deplaning. You pay for priority boarding.
Not everybody can, but not everybody knows that the plane's going to come in late and they're going to have a tighter connection. How do you anticipate that?
You can use the Wi-Fi on the plane and say, it's going to be tight. You need to do it.
IGH gal, deboarding issues could possibly be fixed with a little light above each row, which gives said row permission to move about the cabin. I kind of like that. Again, I don't know if people would stick with it.
I like it.
I mean, you just have to. I mean,
it's a federal regulation.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that. Okay,
I do too.
But then you got to have somebody regulating the lights, and I don't think flight attendants want to do that extra stuff. I don't know, and they may have other duties. So
yeah,
that's the question.
Well, I'd say once the pilots land, just hit the lights, or the people that do the jet bridge, they could be in charge of it. That could be part of their job. The people that bring the plane in and then open the door.
We can't do the damn zipper merge. There is no way hopscotch would work.
It's true.
It's a good line. Actually, very well played.
You know one way they could regulate it in terms of the tight connections, if you wanted, because that was instead of just saying a lot of you have tight connections, please allow them to get off first. You basically announce the seat numbers of who has the tight connections.
Well, yeah.
Everybody knows that. Just say, Lou Nanny in seat 2A. Dan Barrero in seat 3A, Pat Kessler in seat 4A. Those are all the first class ones. And then Guardsy in 26C. You don't have to say the names, just go, here are the people that we need to let out first.
It would be too logical to board from the rear. That would avoid a lot of headaches, but the beautiful people want to get on ASAP. Why? I have no idea. I'd rather just relax in the terminal. Well, you can make the argument, but here's the key to that. Here's the only way starting boarding at the back of the plane makes sense. You have to have a flight attendant refuse to allow them to drop their bag in the overhead halfway, like 10 rows from the back of the plane where they are. They have to bring their bag back as close as possible to the row they're in. Because that's what creates the hysteria and the paranoia. I got to get on fast. Because a lot of people, what they do is they just drop the bag there, and then conveniently, it's easy to pick it up on the way out, right?
Correct, yep.
Because you ain't going behind you to get your bag. It's in front of you. So you have to have a monitor say, that's not where your bag's going to go. Your bag's going to have to go at the back of the plane, right?
There also has to be tighter regulations on what is actually supposed to go up.
Well,
because people take advantage of that.
There's one foolproof way out of this box. No overhead. Or you reverse it, and we've talked about this for years. You charge not for the bag going in under the plane. Mm-hmm. You charge for the bag going in the overhead.
Yeah.
You know, how quickly will it? Now, again, people get annoyed. I got to wait longer.
Yep.
And what if my bag doesn't make it? We get all of that.
Yep.
But again, in terms of making it the easiest for everybody, then let's face it, half of the boarding experience, the nightmare of it is people trying to find that overhead space.
I think it's more than half.
Grab lift it up, trying to, and then I got to position it differently because there's somebody's, mink stole in the way. And that's what slows everything down, right? So you take the incentive away. You reverse the incentive. And the new incentive is, hey, you want to put it in the belly of the plane? No charge. You want it in the convenience of overhead? I mean, because in all honesty, the way the airlines do it, and my guess is they make too much money doing it the way they're doing it to reconsider it.
They do.
Is they are discouraging. You can see how annoyed flight attendants get with what people bring on planes. But what they have to come to grips with is their own airline's policy is what encourages the notion of trying to bring a bag that's too big on the plane because it's free. Right? And a lot of people are going to say, I want my bag. I don't want to lose it. I want to get off the plane fast, and I want to save money. So I'm not going to do it. So I don't think flight attendants have a right to be annoyed because every airline's policy on this obviously incentivizes people bringing their steamer trunk on board.
I would be curious to know because Sun Country charges for both under the plane and
they do.
And overhead. Yeah, the only thing that's straight up free on Sun Country is the under the seat, like your backpack or your purse or whatever it is. I wonder, I'd love to see the analytics. Has that encouraged more people to check bags because you're going to get charged anyway. So you're not saving any money as long as you're cool with waiting for it at your final destination. I want to say it's almost the same price. I think it's probably $30 each up or underneath the plane. I wonder if that's encouraged more people to just check it and then not deal with
Let
it.
me ask you another question. You know, occasionally they'll go, this is a small commuter jet. We got limited overhead space. And so we're going to need about 10 of you almost automatically to drop your bag right on the entrance to the plane.
Yep, pink tag it, and it will be waiting for you when you get off the plane. There's a part of me that says, can you just volunteer to do that every time? Even on a plane that's not that full, can you walk up to that spot and say, I want to pink tag it? Because, in all honesty, isn't that the best of both worlds for people? I love pink tagging it.
You got to wait a little while, but not as long as at the conveyor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a sense, the bag is with you. It's just not, actually on the overhead, but now you don't have to worry about overhead space, but you're going to walk off the plane and the bag's either going to be waiting for you or it'll be there very shortly.
Yeah. I love that idea. Problem with mass pink tagging is usually it's an individual that's bringing the bags up themselves.
True.
Like it's not, they're not just throwing them on a truck, putting them on a conveyor belt and dumping them. They've usually got to walk them up to the jet bridge, which is probably problematic.
UNLV deplane study guy is an idiot. Planes are loaded front to back to prevent the plane from tipping back on its tail section. Is that true?
Probably.
So if they actually started in the back, the plane would the front of the plane would go up in the air?
It can. Yeah, it is actually scary. We deal with this on Gopher planes a lot. They definitely check the weight a lot to see, okay, who's on what side. And then they'll say, everybody in the back, please sit down, or everybody up front, please sit down. The weight, it is scary how finicky it does seem to be with what can happen to the plane.
This is 952 guy. The abyss. Pretty sure this plant diagram was in my kids' algebra homework. That could very well be. I guess he must be talking about the hopscotch approach. United, writes Chris, is going to a new boarding process. Window seats board first, middle rows next, then aisle row seats board last. Well, that seems like that's a form of the hopscotch in a way.
I don't mind that.
No, that's interesting. I did not know that change was being made. John the mail carrier is back. Hold on. I had it for a minute and I lost it. Let me scroll in the right direction here. There's another one saying we can't even zipper merge, but where did the mail carrier or second one go? Why don't the flight attendants act like ushers in church? That's Thurston in Edina, actually. And John the mail carrier, it's funny, John the mail carrier, same thing, like ushers at Catholic Church for communion. My guess is because the flight attendants will say, we got too many other things to do as you're getting off the plane. We're prepping for the next flight or whatever the case may be. So we need a lot more money if you're going to ask us to be ushers as well. Because in effect, that's what you're saying. You're asking for them to be much more central in the boarding and deplaning process, correct?
Yeah, I don't think we need to ask flight attendants to do anything more. They got their hands full.
True, but it means a lot of this other stuff isn't practical. I mean, if you don't have anybody else who could do it, have a locked gate on each aisle. Yeah, that'll go well.
Well, just do, or like the amusement park rides. Where
there's like a
lap belt. And then they go through before they start the ride. They always lift up to make sure that it's secured. And if you need to go to the bathroom, you got to hit a button, and then they'll release it. But when it's time to get off the plane, they don't all release at once, just one by one.
I like this idea. On the boarding morass process, a buddy of mine calls everyone who stands up and crowds the line gate fleas. Gate fleas, as in S.
So he calls them out.
And
that's dangerous.
It is. It's a fascinating concept. You're right, because as soon as gate agent says, "Welcome to flight 306 to Chicago, Illinois," and there are 45 people already standing, queuing up, and what does that do? It slows everybody down in the orderly process of who's going to go in what order, because there's a blockage. So suddenly, then you got to shout, "Sorry, I'm in group 1 or 2. You can be mad at me if you want, but why are those people standing? They've got 4 bags, and they want to find places on the plane for the bag. That's what has to change, is utterly finding ways to utterly discourage bringing your. And I'll be honest, I tilted a lot of windmills. I fight a lot of battles not worth fighting. But this is a battle I gave up on a long time ago. I said, I'll just check. I'll check. And frankly, on our most recent trip to Chicago, it was around Christmas, one of our bags didn't arrive. It was a nightmare. It took like 5 hours to find it. And they just didn't put it on the plane for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then it was 24 hours of hell to see the thing finally be delivered. Actually, I think it was more like 48 hours. But so there is that risk. But I'm fine with that. I don't want to have extra stuff to carry. I just don't. I'll take. It's a hassle. I'll have to wait. I get all of that. But I'd much rather do that than mess with the rest of it.
Especially when we travel with the kids, there was a time where they wanted to bring their own suitcases on the plane, and they've got their carry-on, and they're very proud of it, and it's Paw Patrol or it's a hockey bag. I said, we're already dragging 3 kids through these terminals. We don't need their bags, too.
That's true. Let's
just get everything under the plane, and if it doesn't show up, I guess we'll buy diapers when they were younger at the Target when we land. Minimize.
I'd like to find this the details on the start of this Shanghai story. We did the light idea, right? Little light above each row. That's pretty good. Now, stuck in the middle of dozens and dozens of texts on this subject. Explain this out of nowhere. The non sequitur texts I always love. Dan should work for NPR. Well,
have you ever considered that?
No, but maybe I should. But what is it that I've said on this subject that in any way gets into the bit of NPR? I'm just curious. I'm trying to figure out what the connection is. That's from, looks like 612 guy. I hope he's still listening.
Give a little more insight.
How do you come up with that? And all the things, we get a lot of non sequitur political texts. I will grant that for various reasons. But I'm very curious on this one, how it ends up becoming part of the deal. Knuckleheads like Special K would probably ruin this type of deplaning. That's Mo from Chicago, formerly Uptown. So a Kessler cheap shot in the middle of it.
He's probably driving in right now.
Yeah, very, very true. The issue with the airline situation is the fact that the airlines have reduced considerably the amount of overhead space. I thought it was just the opposite. I thought actually they have made those spaces bigger.
They feel bigger to me.
I think they look. Yeah, I think they are. Because he's saying that's why they're all running to get it on, get their to their seat and put their bag in the overhead. I think the overhead has gotten a lot better compared to a lot of the planes, especially the smaller planes. You go, God, there's no room for anything up here.
Right.
And then you're doubly in the position where you just might as well check at that point.
I like the newer compartments where you have to put the roller bags on their side. It used to be when on the older planes, you put it in kind of on its belly or on its back. But now in these newer ones, you stack them on the side. It feels like you can get more in there, and then they shut it. It seems very efficient. Very efficient.
There has to be an answer. There just has to be.
But there isn't because of humanity.
Yeah.
Because humanity is imperfect. We are an imperfect people. We're fighting human nature in every logical decision that we put forth anywhere.
When it comes to unwritten rules, it's already a lost cause. You'd think people would have common sense and courtesy in those situations, but unless it's explicitly written out to them, they'll completely ignore it, and they probably still will ignore even if it is. And, that there is some of that. And there's 2 types of people who ignore, if we're honest about it, right? It's the people who just aren't, they're in a fog, or they're not paying attention, or they don't have it in them. But then there's the people who pretend to be in a fog. Almost like, I guess I didn't even realize what I was doing. And they know damn well what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
I do know
They're everywhere. Yep. And they're slick because they have made their way in life pretending to be in that fog when they're not foggy at all. It is a claimed and deliberate and intentional strategy is exactly what it is. How about this? How about we give you a little extra time to breathe? Spread your wings on the top 5 at 5.
You love doing this in the abyss.
In the last minute, especially.
Last minute.
Yeah, just to get you going.
Well, we can try, because it is a little dry. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you can manufacture.
And I'm not trying to rhyme every single sentence here either.
I can't get Tim Connolly to text me back.
About what?
Well, about everything. Because because the last text exchange we had was not going to talk for a while. You know, we want to wait, kind of lay low until the ownership announcement. Well, the ownership announcement, the fan has learned, has been made.
Yeah.
Now I think I'm going to be, but really there's still nothing official yet. But this is official. I mean, the arbitration ruling is binding.
Yes.
Right? So
the path forward is there for them.
We can get an audience with the man who runs the Timberwolves sometime either this week or next week. It would be nice to catch up.
Along those lines, for the top 5, I was going to ask, or I guess reveal, will the new owners be there tonight?
Ooh.
The answer might surprise you.
Okay.
And will anybody be playing for the Milwaukee Bucks in their only trip to Minneapolis this year?
Is it so bad that Doc Rivers might not even show up? Oh, he's kind of has to. He's the head coach, right?
Yeah, and he was the consultant who then
that's
decided they needed to fire the old head coach.
Well.
And here comes Doc. Yeah. Slid right in there.
Very, very true, Davey. So that'll be a part of it. Anything else you want to tease?
No, I got to come up with something for to make it breathe.
All right. Well, we'll figure it out. You have plenty of time. There's always something I think that you could indeed add. Keep the text coming. We had a steady stream on a number of subjects today. Kessler will join in studio beginning right about 5:30 right here in the